He's like William.
Nobody wants to sit in the middle.
What's new, Robbie?
Where's Richard Drift?
Who are you?
SOS. Vertical.
Yeah, I hear you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the quorum for a special town meeting is 150 voters. We are already, I'm told by the town clerk, Holly Sargent, that we are in excess of that already. Still waiting on the 200 for the annual. So we're passing out the warrants now. We didn't want to pass them out till we made sure we had a quorum. There's a lot of printing to it. Can you hear me all right? No? Can you hear me better now? God.
Going down. Going down. Taxpayer reserve.
Yeah.
Led by Mariah and George.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's, I think it's going okay. It's got me exhausted anyway.
You're here before you know it.
Yeah. Well, it was
Next
tough
week.
because I had to get ready for Memorial Day and I was exhausted.
Yeah, I missed the mechanics.
No, they were on TV. I guess it was okay. I don't
Missed
think
it,
I
I was-
did that well, but I didn't.
You did fine.
I didn't screw up terribly, so. So what did John say? And they
Awesome.
Start this special thing, or they're giving out.
Knock on wood.
I don't know why they didn't give them as far as they came in.
They won't unless there is a quorum.
Not much over.
Oh, very good. I mean, that's somewhat sensible.
Someone printed it.
Yeah.
That's what we call backfiring. That's a classic. So you guys
Right.
enough to worry about you.
Martin.
After you move the article and someone seconds it,
Yep.
immediately go into the amendment.
Amendment Article 1. Okay. So I'll read off Amendment Article 1. And then when I read these, I don't do Finance Committee.
John will say that.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Ray, because I was just reading these. I didn't even see the amendment piece there. So Bill, can you just second? I'll wait till the finance.
You got a different script than I did.
Oh, do you? Is it?
Give me a script. Yeah. Thank you. In case you guys go down, I'll be.
Why are you giving us the script?
Everybody, is there anybody who does not have a warrant down below at this time?
It's like,
This is what everyone else has.
At this time, I'd like to start the meeting. We do have over 150 people. The town clerk has informed us, so we are all set to begin the meeting. Your stage members for tonight's meeting, on your far right, Selectman Jim LeBlanc. Selectman James LeBlanc has decided not to seek re-election after 9 years of service to the board. It's a very difficult job, and we want to thank him for his 9 years of service to the Board of Selectmen. Selectman Mike Jakonski, Selectman David Sargent, Vice Chairman Bill Conley, and Chairman of the Board Mark Akabuchi. Your town administrator is Michael Ward. Your town attorney is Robert Gibbons. Your clerk stenographer is Julie Kilbride over here, and I'm John Hogan. I'll be your moderator this evening. Your Finance Committee sitting to your right over here is Chairman James Tumalo. They are all here. Attorney William McGrail, Barry Whitney, Edward Powers, Robert Latini, and Ellen O'Toole. I'd like to have a moment of silence this time, but the only one I have right now is from the Police Department. The Secretary Gloria Domenico has passed away in the last year. If we could have a moment of silence for her at this time. Thank you. The only people seated in the hall now should be registered voters of the town of Clinton or people who have been given prior permission by myself to observe the proceedings from the visitor section in the back of the balcony. To speak tonight, please be recognized and go to one of the microphones to speak. Please state your name and address before speaking. All proposed amendments should be presented to me in writing. Please note personalities in your remarks and try to keep your comments to the article under discussion. The only hands that will be counted during hand votes are from voters who are seated in the hall, so I encourage all standees to take a seat before the first vote. Unless I hear an objection, I will dispense with the formal reading of the warrant, as you should all have copies in front of you now. There being none, we can start with Article 1.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from the Ambulance Enterprise Fund retained earnings the amount of $6,000, said sum to increase the fiscal year 2017 Ambulance Enterprise Fund overtime line item from $19,000 to $23,000.
Second.
Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the Article 1 by changing $6,000 to $8,000 to increase the fiscal year 2017 Ambulance Enterprise Fund overtime line item from $19,000 to $27,000.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made to amend Article 1, where it says $6,000, we would change that to $8,000, and where it says $23,000, we would change that to $27,000. Mr. Ward, could you just explain this a little bit? This is probably clear as mud to people sitting in the hall looking at it.
This here is just to appropriate additional funding for overtime account in the Ambulance Enterprise Fund. So there are surplus funds from last year in that account, and we're just looking to transfer some of those surplus funds into the operating budget that will close out June 30th to make sure that we'll be balanced in that line item for overtime for fire calls, fire and ambulance calls.
Thank you. Any questions on right now we're on the amendment to Article 1. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, we'll vote on the amendment. You're voting to amend the article, not whether or not to pass it. All those in favor of the amendment to Article 1, please indicate by raising your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The amendment passes unanimously. Now we'll vote on the article itself. All those in favor of Article 1, please indicate by raising your cards now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Article 1 is passed unanimously. Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund retained earnings the amount of $300,000, said sum to increase the fiscal year 2017 water sewer improvements line item from $28,000 to $328,000.
Second.
Articles 2 have been made and seconded, dealing with a transfer of water from the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. Once again, I'm going to ask Mr. Ward to explain this a little bit. Just the first 3 articles I know are a little difficult. So,
Yes, Mr. Moderator, this is, again, money from the prior year surplus, retained earnings from the water sewer account, and we're looking to put money into the water sewer improvement line item in order to complete the Franklin Street water project that was done this past year, so that we can close that account out without a deficit in that fund.
okay, article number 2 have been made and seconded and now explained. Any questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none. All in favor, please signify by raising your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 3.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to establish a project reserve account in the Landfill Enterprise Fund and to appropriate and transfer from the Landfill Enterprise Fund retained earnings the amount of $3,600,000 to said project reserve account for fiscal year 2017.
Second.
Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the Article 3 by changing the figure of $3,600,000 to the figure of $3,850,000.
Second.
Article number 3 have been put in play and a proposed amendment to it to change the 3.6 million to 3.85. Questions, comments, or discussion on the amendment to the article? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Okay, the article is amended. Now the figure should read 3.850. Questions, comments under the article itself as amended? There being none, all in favor, please signify now by raising your card. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article number 4.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to take from certified free cash the sum of $190,000, said sum to be expended by the police department to fund retroactive wages as part of the negotiated agreement between the town of Clinton through the Board of Selectmen and the Massachusetts Coalition of Police Local 151 for the period of July 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2017, having been negotiated in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 150E, as amended.
Second.
Article number 4 have been made and seconded dealing with a 3-year raise retroactively for the police department. I know you don't have the contract in front of you, but I can tell you it was essentially, if you figure it out, it's like 2% per year for the 3 years. And those 3 years will end at the end of this month. So I guess they're going to be working on another one very quick. So any questions, comments, or discussion on Article 4? There being none, this has the approval of the Finance Committee. All those in favor, please signify by raising your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article number 5.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to take from certified free cash the sum of $157,840 and from the Ambulance Enterprise Fund retained earnings the sum of $10,000, said sums to be expended by the fire department to fund retroactive wages as part of a negotiated agreement between the town of Clinton through the Board of Selectmen and the International Association of Firefighters, Local 3189, for the period of July 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2017, having been negotiated in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 150E, as amended.
Second.
Article number 5 have been made and seconded, same type of article, this dealing with the Clinton Fire Department. Also a 3-year raise, go retroactively for almost 3 years ago. Likewise, 2, 2, and 2 is essentially what you're looking at for the raises they would be getting in arrears. Questions, comments, or discussion under Article 5? Bearing the approval of the Finance Committee, all those in favor, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to supplement each prior vote to the town that the town authorizes the borrowing of money to pay costs of capital projects, to provide that in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, the premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes thereunder, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to pay project costs, and the amount authorized to be borrowed for each such project shall be reduced by the amount of any such premium so applied.
Second.
Article number 6 have been made and seconded. This is a request or maybe a requirement from the DOR under the Municipal Modernization Act, and bond money that we receive must go to the project that it was bonded for and not go into the general fund. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 71F, as amended to provide for the education of non-resident or foster care students.
Second.
Article number 7 have been made and seconded. What this deals with is special needs students that come into the town of Clinton for programs. The host town from where they live must pay for their involvement in programs in Clinton. So the Clinton's not footing the bill, the town they live in would. Questions, comments, or discussion under Article 7? There being none, all in favor signify by raising your card now. Thank you, and opposed. Thank you. The article is passed unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move to adjourn the special town meeting.
Second.
The adjournment made and seconded. All in favor, please signify by raising your card. Thank you, and opposed. Okay, the special town meeting is now closed. I just need, if our town clerk is available, I just need verification that we have 200 people. Okay. The town clerk has verified we have over 200 people who have now registered in the hall, so we can proceed with the annual town meeting. I've already read my sheet. I won't read it again from the beginning of the meeting. But unless there's objection, we'll begin right with Article 1. We can start now.
Mr. Moderator, I move to receive the reports of the town officers and to act thereon.
Second.
Article number 1, have been made and seconded. Annual article, questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you, and opposed? Thank you, the article is passed. Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fix the salaries and compensation of all elected officials of the town as provided by Chapter 41, subsection 108 of the Massachusetts General Laws. Said salaries and compensation to be effective from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, and to raise and appropriate a sum of money therefore.
Second.
Article number 2, have been made and seconded, dealing with the salaries of elected officials in the town of Clinton. Annual article, questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 3.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate from the current tax levy the sum of $41,076,174 and to appropriate and transfer from certified free cash the sum of $44,640 and to appropriate and transfer from assessors overlay surplus the sum of $385,000 and to appropriate and transfer the sum of $16,834 and to raise and appropriate the sum of $346,149 from the Ambulance Enterprise Fund and to appropriate from the Ambulance Enterprise Fund retained earnings the sum of $37,744 and to appropriate and transfer the sum of $75,977 and raise and appropriate the sum of $2,620,773 from the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund and to appropriate and transfer the sum of $9,125 and raise and appropriate the sum of $612,253 from the Rubbish Enterprise Fund and to appropriate and transfer the sum of $31,904 and raise and appropriate the sum of $852,763 from the Landfill Enterprise Fund and to appropriate from the Landfill Project Reserve Account the sum of $800,000, said sums to be used to defray town charges from July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, as those charges appear in the Finance Committee Report of Recommendations.
Second.
Article number 3 have been made and seconded. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your budget for the next fiscal year that begins the 1st of July. If you look at your columns on the budget page, first budget page, at the top, it says your final budget for 2017, which will expire June 30th, your requested budget for 2018, and your Finance Committee approved budget, which is what you will be voting on or working off of in the far right-hand column on the pages. You'll notice as you go forward that some of the right-hand column, that some of them have been consolidated and there are blanks where there had been previously been numbers. The Department of Revenue has asked the Finance Committee in the town to consolidate some of those numbers to make it easier, I guess, for them to understand it all. So we have obliged with that. And some of the items that used to be explained a little further are no longer are. They're under a general column for miscellaneous. Okay, what I'll do is now I'll go over this department by department. If you have any questions about a certain department, question, comment, amendment, whatever you like, raise your hand when I say that department. If you think of something after we've gone past that, wait till the end. I'll have a catch-all at the end for anyone who would like to speak to the budget in any regard going back at the end after we've read them all. So you can do it either way. Okay, starting at the top, moderator, Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, Town Accountant, Board of Assessors, Treasurer Collector, Parkings Fines Administrator, Town Solicitor, Town Clerk, Conservation, Planning Board, Zoning Board, Montezut Planning Commission, Office of Economic Development, Town Hall Building Manager, Insurance and Miscellaneous, top of the next page, the Police Department, Fire Department, I know this is quick, but I don't know any other way to do it, so, Building Inspector, Gas and Plumbing Inspectors, Weights and Measures, Electrical Inspector, yes ma'am, right up here.
Danielle Rydberg, 34 Nathan Drive. I just have a general question. I know you're going fast, and I'm not questioning anything at this time because I'm not educated enough, but if I did want to become more knowledgeable as to, like, wow, this person's salary jumped 25% and blah, 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 how does one member of the town get to that point where you understand these numbers? Like, are there subcommittee meetings you're supposed to be attending, or?
Well, the budget is put together by a subcommittee of 2 members of the Selectmen and 2 members of the Finance Committee, and then it goes back to the Finance Committee for final approval. So they do meet, they meet with each department over the last couple of months and put this budget together. And the department heads put together what they would like, and then they see how they do with the Finance Committee level, and sometimes they get what they want, and sometimes they don't.
Okay.
And all that gets presented to you tonight.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I wasn't questioning anything. I was just trying to be more educated on how this all comes
That's
out.
fine.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Emergency Management. Animal Control Officer. School Department. Department of Public Works. Cemetery Department. Board of Health. Council on Aging. Veterans Services. Your public library. Next page. Parks and Recreation. Fuller Field Commission. Pensions. Facility Department. And then you've got some commissions down to the bottom. Then on the next page is the enterprise budgets for the ambulance and the water and sewer. Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Mariah Hunt-Laguerre, 4 Walden Terrace. I'd like to get some clarification on the FY 2018 proposed budget. This budget is $56.4 million, a 16.25% increase over FY 2017 at $48.5 million. During the past 10 years of budgets, there have never been an increase of this size, the largest increase being 5% in 2016 when the override was passed. I would like to request that someone explain in layman's terms why this budget increased to this level and how it will affect the taxpayers in Clinton in FY 2018. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chumalo.
Basically, the big changes in the budget come because of the landfill and the money we're transferring into an account, $3.8 million for the remediation work we have to do on the dump. There's another $1.5 million that we're transferring into an enterprise fund for future use by the town. That's coming from the enterprise fund. The real budget's going up a little over 4%. If you take those large ticket items out, pretty much in line with what we've been doing in the past few years. Thank you.
Okay, going back to your budget, I think we just talked about the rubbish enterprise fund, and then there's the landfill enterprise fund below that. And then you have a fiscal 2018 summary page. The next page is some appropriations, local expenditures, and your sources of funding. Also explained is the debt exclusions on the last page. Now that I've thoroughly confused you, is there anyone who would like to speak in any regard about this budget? I know it's cumbersome, but I don't know any other way to do it unless you come up here early and get a copy of the budget to really take a good look at it. But it is scrutinized by our Finance Committee and Selectmen before it's presented to you. There being none, if I don't hear any, sir? What?
My name's Sarah, I live in Wilson Street. So to your point that you just
What was your
mentioned.
name? I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Sarah
Sarah,
Carver.
thank you.
Sure. So the point that you just made about maybe getting this out earlier, is that possible?
Well, this is kind of a work in progress right up to the end.
Sure.
They have to work with what they have. They have to see what they're getting in state aid. That doesn't always come that early. So, you know, the meetings they put this budget together are all open meetings, and anyone can attend. And if you come up like the day or two before the town meeting, you can probably get a copy of the budget and review it for a couple of days before the meeting starts.
Sure. Does the paperwork that comes out of those meetings, that's available as well? So if you produce a document, is that viewable by the public?
You mean the subcommittee meetings?
Yeah.
And the,
mhm. Is there a way to post it, I guess, is my question?
Well,
or-
they do post meetings.
Oh,
in the
I'm sorry,
town.
online. Is there, to increase the
I
accessibility?
don't know if they do it online. They do it in the town clerk's office. I don't know. Mike?
No, the meetings are posted as to when they're happening.
Yep.
The minutes of the meetings are not posted online. However, the budget, according to the bylaw, is required to be posted online at the minimum a week before town meeting.
Okay.
So it has been up on the town
Okay,
website
great.
since last week.
And on the town website, I looked for it, and I couldn't find it. Was I not looking in the right place?
It's on clintonma.gov, and
Yep.
it's on the right-hand side, all the way to the right of the front page. There would be the warrant and then the budget, the proposed budget are on that front page.
Okay, I couldn't find it. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, yeah.
Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns about Article 3, your budget? There being none, I'll take a vote at this time. All in favor of Article 3 as presented, please indicate by raising your card. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 4.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the town treasurer and town collector to enter into a compensating balance agreement with the banking institution for fiscal year 2018 pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 53F of the Massachusetts General Laws.
Second.
Article number 4 have been made and seconded. Annual article requiring the treasurer and collector to put monies they receive in interest-bearing accounts. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 5.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,800 to said sum to be expended for social services in accordance with programs as approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Article number 5 have been made and seconded, approved by the Finance Committee for the sum of $4,800 for social services. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000, said sum to be expended as the town of Clinton's share to the Wachusett Health Education Action Team, WHEAT, Inc., which committee is a delegate agency of the United Way of Tri-County.
Second.
Article number 6 have been made and seconded, dealing with a sum of $15,000 for the organization we all know as WHEAT. Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to reauthorize the use of the following revolving funds containing receipts from the fees charged to users of the services provided by various boards, committees, departments, or offices of the town, in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half of Massachusetts General Laws.
Second.
Article number 7 have been made and seconded, dealing with the use of revolving funds for the departments you see on your warrant in the left column. This was on your warrant last year as well. Apparently, this is supposed to be voted on every year. However, the next article, Article 8, will make it something that if you choose to accept it, would make it pretty automatic and it wouldn't have to reappear on your warrant every year. Are there any questions or concerns about this article that you would like to address? There being none, we'll take a vote of the sign. All those in favor of Article 7, please indicate by raising your card. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 8.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the administrative bylaws by adding the following new section: departmental revolving funds. Purpose, this bylaw establishes and authorizes revolving funds to use by town departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers in connection with the operation of programs or activities that generate fees, charges, or other receipts to support or some of the expenses of those programs or activities. These revolving funds are established under and governed by general laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half, and Mr. Moderator, I request that we dispense the rest of the reading of this article.
Second.
Okay. The rest of it is on your warrant. It's for those on TV, it's a rather lengthy article, and what this amounts to is, it's an administrative bylaw change which would take what was done in Article 7, and then the departments, which I think are the same, listed under Article 8. It would make this an annual thing that you wouldn't have to vote on every year. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion on this administrative bylaw request? Ma'am?
Mariah Hunt Laguerre, 4 Walden Terrace. I am in favor of this article, but would like to know what kind of reporting we're going to be seeing on this. We haven't put out an annual town budget manual since 2013, so I'm all in favor of putting funds together, but there needs to be some accountability. So can anybody answer the question on what we're going to be seeing if these do get combined?
Okay. Do we know what,
No, they won't be combined. They'll be the same as they are right now. It just would allow, the bylaw would authorize these funds to take place, and any changes in reauthorizations could be done within the budget each year. So it's not as though it's totally going away. We just won't have to have a separate article. It'll just become part of the budget. But whatever funds are set up will be set up in this bylaw. So it's still operating the same revolving funds that they're operating right now.
any further, is that a hand? I think so, yep.
Hi, Rebecca Gray, Ross Street. I'm going to further that question. I think she's asking about opacity. We'd like to know if we are going to have an opaque exposure of what money is being spent where, so that this isn't a revolving fund where somebody is just throwing parties in their backyard. So how are you going to show us where that money goes each year? Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ward?
I think, again, any monies that would be spent would be shown, but I don't think all the expenditures, I don't think there would be a list of expenditures and programs and that detail. I mean, our town accountant would have that detail if anybody requested it, but even in our town report, the reporting would be how much money was spent out of that fund. I don't believe we would have a list of every expenditure that would come from it, but
Okay, so I hope that answers your question. The town, go ahead, Mr.
Just to
Gibbons.
clarify, this isn't, revolving funds as they exist today are still going to exist under this new change. In other words, now they're going to be governed by a bylaw. Right now, we vote on the, if we have a handful of revolving funds, we vote on them every single year. Now those same revolving funds will be part of a bylaw. If a revolving fund is going to get added, it would have to become before a town meeting for a bylaw change. The revolving funds that are in that bylaw, every year the town meeting will still vote on the maximum amount that can be put into that revolving fund and therefore taken out of that revolving fund for expenditure. So town meeting will still control that. So next year, if this bylaw passes next year, in the budget, there'll be listed these revolving funds with the cap amount that town meeting will vote on. So it's not changing. The revolving funds are still going to exist the same way they have existed in the past. It's just now they're going to be governed by a bylaw as opposed to every year having to vote them at town meeting.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion?
And Mr. Moderator, I mean, we can have in the town accountant's report at the end of the year, can include those expenses. So certainly, we'll look into having that included as part of the town accountant's report for next year.
Ma'am.
Ioana Osborne, 180 Main Street. I also serve on Parks and Rec Commission. Just to clarify a little bit, it gives a little more autonomy to the individual boards that have these revolving funds to do more minor things, so you don't have to get a corporate approval for more incidental things. You can always come to an open meeting and ask those questions if you're really interested, but it requires you to be a little more vigilant as a voter to show up to them if you really want to have more contact with what's going on. But to Mike Ward's point, once a year, the accountant would make it available to you, but if you want to know about it sooner, just come to a meeting. Thanks.
Any further questions, comments, sir?
Jeff Swan, 132 Franklin Street. I just want to understand, we're making a change to prevent us from having to vote, which takes, in the last hour, takes 2 minutes. Is that what we're doing? We're making a change which, according to this woman, stated that we could observe by spending more time of our time to come to more meetings to see more things so that we could save ourselves from taking a 2-minute vote. Is that the nature of this change?
Anybody like to address?
The nature of the change is, it's really driven by the legislature. They have now said, instead of revolving funds being voted at town meeting every year, revolving funds now have to be established through a bylaw. So we have bylaws in the town of Clinton. So now, as we're doing now, is setting these revolving funds up under a bylaw because the legislature has dictated that that's how we have to do it. If we don't vote for this, then all the revolving funds are going to cease to exist because we don't have a bylaw that governs them. So this is a change that we have to implement if we still want to have revolving funds, because going forward, they're going to be governed by town bylaws, not at the town meeting every year. So if you're going to have revolving funds, you've got to have them in this bylaw. This is being dictated by the state.
So, not to take up more time, so there's no option on this vote? That's
Not if
the
you- not
only
if you
way
wanna
this
have
can
them,
be
no.
done.
Right. And the reason why you have Article 7 and Article 8, Article 7 is the old way, but we had to vote on Article 7 just to keep the revolving funds going because July 1st is going to be here, in less than a month. In Article 8, which is the bylaw approval, that has to go to the AG's office for approval. That takes at least 90 days. So in the meantime, we had to go the old way. But once that bylaw is in, the bylaw then governs. And you have to do that because otherwise the old way is not going to dictate. It has to be a bylaw if you're going to have revolving funds. So that's the only change. It's really just a mechanism. The revolving funds themselves are not changing. They've been in existence, in the past, and they're going to continue to exist going forward, providing we have a bylaw.
And we'll certainly provide that information annually in the report.
Mike Roberts, 4 Bourne Street. You said that this has to be passed? What happens in the event that Article 8 fails? Does that invalidate all of our budgets?
Well, eventually the DOR would tell us that we don't have a proper bylaw to govern revolving funds. So they'd be saying you're operating a revolving fund illegally.
And is this something that just occurred this year?
Yes, the legislature, yes, it's part of the Municipal Modernization Act. So they made a lot of changes. The revolving fund is one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion under Article 8? Finance Committee approved. Why don't we take a vote at this time? All in favor of Article 8 indicate by raising your card. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 9.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate from the Assessor's Overlay Reserve account the sum of $15,000, said sum to be used to continue the senior tax rebate program for fiscal year 2018.
Second.
Article number 9 have been made and seconded, dealing with $15,000 for the senior tax rebate program. Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 10.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from certified free cash a sum of $100,000 to Health Insurance Trust Fund.
Second.
Article number 10 have been made and seconded, dealing with a sum of $100,000 to be put towards the Retirees Health Insurance Fund. It's a fund that they have to build up for retirees' insurance programs. There's already some money in it. They're adding another $100,000 to that. Questions, comments, or discussion? Sir?
Mike Roberts, 4 Bourne Street. Has it been determined that $100,000 is an adequate amount to be put to the Health Insurance Trust Fund? by adequate, I mean to fulfill the obligations of the trust fund when it comes to...
The $100,000?
Yes,
No,
has it been...
that won't be enough to cover it.
It won't be enough? So what
It's-
would be
it's
enough to
annually,
cover it?
They want to increase it to get to the proper level on an annual basis rather than hit you all up at
How
once.
far off are we? How far off are we from coming up with
That,
different...
Mike,
Does-
you know?
does- Take a guess.
Millions,
Millions, so we're millions off base.
millions off.
Millions off base. And this is being addressed how?
This is,
doing this.
this is projected out over 30 years.
Okay.
And this is an attempt to at least set something aside for these costs. Up until now, it's been pay-as-you-go.
Okay.
In this budget, we're paying for all our post-retirement health insurance and those types of things. But it's projected that eventually, with the liabilities that we have today of employees currently working, someday retiring and claiming these benefits, that it's going to exceed our ability to pay for it out of our operating budget.
So,
Therefore, we are attempting to set aside whatever money we can.
Sure, I
to-
get
to
that. So
accumulate
at
for that.
$100,000, which I believe is about the same amount we allocated last year?
Exactly.
At this rate, what are our chances of meeting the obligations?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Here, you don't know the answer?
Oh, I'm sure I don't know the answer to that question.
Any further questions? Yes, please.
Hi, Lorraine Liberty, Franklin Street. Just a quick clarification question on the wording on this warrant and a couple of the other ones when it concerns funds. It says $100,000 or any other sum. And I've noticed that when they're reading the warrant, they're actually not saying or any other sum, and that's not being put back. So when it says any other sum, does that mean it could be more? And if it could be more, how much more?
Okay,
I'm just curious on the definition of any other sum.
when they post the warrant, with all the warrant articles, they put that terminology in there to give it a little looseness so it's not firm. They're advertising and advising the town that this article is going to be dealt with, it's dealing with health insurance trust fund for seniors, and that's being advertised. They're recommending a sum of $100,000. If someone
any
wanted to
other
change,
sum.
or any other sum allows it to alter
Up
during
or
the meeting.
down? Up, right. So my question is, if it goes up, because every article that involves money says, or any other sum.
Yeah, that's correct.
So if they all go up, how do we know that?
How do we know what?
How do I know what the difference is? How do I know that instead of, completely for lack of ease of conversation, what if you guys decided we're only going to put 50 here, but we're going to put another 50 somewhere else?
Mr. Conley?
We can't, this board or the finance committee doesn't make that decision. You do. If you choose to reduce it by $50,000 or increase it by $50,000, you have the ability to do that. The warrant, as advertised, is a warning to the taxpayers that articles of this magnitude are going to be voted on.
So when this
But
says
the
or any other sum tonight, I could come up here and say, I want this to be $200,000 because we feel that,
You can amend the article, I believe, but the amount has to be consistent with the warning that was given in the advertising. I
so
believe.
why does this say or any
change
other sum? I don't understand.
Because you can get up and amend it and add 50, 75, $100,000, or reduce it to zero.
But I can't do that in this meeting because it needs to be.
No,
in
this is the meeting that you could do it at.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
You're all set? Okay. Any other questions, comments, or discussion?
But if I could just make one comment,
Sure,
Mr.
Mr.
Moderator.
Ward.
The town meeting does have the ability to decrease or increase, but the recommendation from the Finance Committee is based on available revenues. So if it goes up, something else has to be cut. Because right now, the budget is balanced with the budget and the articles for spending. So there needs to be a funding source if it goes up. It can always go down, but if it goes up, we need to find somewhere else to get that money. Thank you. But you can do that. That is up to the purview of the town meeting to change it.
Sir?
Jeff Swan, 32 Franklin Street. Just to follow up on the previous gentleman's question, if we're adding $100,000 into the fund in an attempt to catch this thing that's gotten out of control, do we know is that number meeting the annual ascending amount? In other words, are we making any progress? You don't, no one knows the answer?
No.
Well, I mean, what's our, there must be, I'm not an actuary, and I'm not an accountant, but I actually have been in business. You must know how much money we're spending, and you must know the rise of the cost. So you must know whether or not this $100,000 is just basically trying to pour a teacup on a fire, or you're actually achieving something.
Mr. Moderator, it is a small amount compared to the amount that we would, the liability that we could have in the future. Right now, we're, as Mr. Connolly indicated, we are covering those costs. There is a projection at a point in the future that it may overwhelm the budget. So the selectmen and finance committee are trying to make a good faith attempt within the means of what's available for revenue to put something away. And this is giving a signal to the financial institutions that they are looking forward to try to meet this obligation. If we did nothing, our bond rating would be affected, and going in the future, we may get hit with a year where we find ourselves in a deep hole. So by putting something in there, this is far short of what it should be, but I think it's what we can afford right now. It allows that money to compound with interest, and hopefully we won't need it for 20 years, and by 20 years, it will be a significant number. But it really could be more than that.
No, and I'm not asking whether it's a good faith. I'm simply asking, are we falling continually behind?
Every municipality is.
Okay, so the answer is, this is not preventing the fact that we are worse off this year than we were last year. Okay?
Any further questions, comments, or discussion under Article 10? There being none, we'll take a vote at this time. This article has been approved by our Finance Committee. All those in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 11.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from certified free cash a sum of $100,000 to the stabilization fund.
Second.
Article number 11 have been made and seconded, dealing with placing $100,000 in available funds into the stabilization fund. Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 12.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $365.35, said sum to be expended by the town treasurer to pay for the following unpaid bills. Conica Minolta, $182.70, and National Grid, $182.65.
Second.
Article number 12 have been made and seconded, dealing with two unpaid bills from a previous year. Unpaid bills, ladies and gentlemen, take a 4/5 vote at annual town meeting to pay. So let's start with this. All those in favor of Article 12, please indicate right now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 13.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from the Landfill Enterprise Fund retaining earnings the sum of $1,500,000 to the Capital Projects and Infrastructure Improvement Stabilization Fund.
Second.
Article number 13 have been made and seconded, dealing with $1,500,000 as a transfer from the Landfill Enterprise Fund to the Capital Projects and Infrastructure Improvement Stabilization Fund. This is used for the landfill, obviously. It's not an appropriation, it's a transfer of funds. Questions, comments, or discussion? Ma'am?
Hi, Mariah Hunt-Laguerre, 4 Walden Terrace. So as I understand, these Article 13 and Article 14 are related, and we are taking money out of the landfill fund of $1.5 million before it is completed. And because we are doing that, Article 14 is asking for state approval to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Right.
Okay.
Is that right? Yes, Mr.
Moderator, I'm sorry. No, we transferred the 3.5 million earlier in special town meeting.
Very good. Technology is not my strong suit. We transferred $3.5 million in special town meeting into a sort of a holding account for the landfill. That's so we could demonstrate to the Commonwealth that we have enough money to continue forward with the landfill. Some years ago, the Board of Selectmen and you people here voted at town meeting to cap the landfill ourselves. That enabled us to do it at our own pace. It also enabled us to keep all of the so-called profits from capping the landfill to spend on capital improvements. So we have to do two things. We had to put the $3.5 million in to show the state we have enough money to go forward. We want to move $1.5 million out of that enterprise account into a capital improvement account. But there is a state law that says all enterprise accounts monies can only be spent on the entity that generates it. So, for example, the sewer enterprise account can only be spent on sewers, and we're fine with that. But the landfill enterprise account has been designed to generate additional revenues to be spent on capital improvements. So in Article 14, we're asking basically our state legislator to submit this home rule petition allowing us to spend the money on capital, that $1.5 million on capital improvements. So we are doing all those things, but they're not necessarily related. They're related to each other, but not legal requirements, I guess.
So can I just clarify those? So the 1.5 that we're moving out to go for capital expenditures, I totally agree with, but we're moving it out before the landfill is completely finished. Is that correct?
Yes, we are, but we are demonstrating to the Commonwealth, as we are required to, that we do have money to move forward and finish that project.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion under Article 13? There being none, this is Finance Committee approved. All those in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 14.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the Massachusetts General Court for a special act to allow the Board of Selectmen from time to time to transfer retained earnings surplus in the landfill enterprise fund into the capital projects and infrastructure improvement stabilization fund to be used only for the purpose of said capital projects and infrastructure improvement stabilization according to guidelines established by the Board of Selectmen, notwithstanding any general or special act to the contrary provided. However, the general court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill unless the Board of Selectmen approves amendments thereto before enactment by the general court, which amendments shall be within the public purposes of said petition.
Second.
Article 14 have been made and seconded. Again, as already discussed, involved with Article 13. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, all in favor signify now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 15.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from certified free cash a sum of $39,700, said sum to be expended by the Board of Assessors to defray the cost of performing the state-mandated property reevaluation for fiscal year 2019.
Second.
Article number 15 have been made and seconded, dealing with the sum of $39,700 for the Board of Assessors to defray the cost of the state-mandated property reval for 2019. Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 16.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from certified free cash the sum of $100,000, said sum to be expended by the Clinton Public Schools for the purpose of textbooks and technology.
Second.
Article 16 have been made and seconded, dealing with a sum of $100,000 for textbooks for the Clinton Public Schools. Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Sir.
Hi, Joseph A. Nutaro, 90 Chase Street. I'd just like to know why this is a separate warrant article and not in the school's budget, if it's for $100,000 and if it's for textbooks and technology, and why it's the third year in a row that this is a separate warrant article and not in the school's budget.
Okay.
Because we already voted to raise the school's budget, so this, why wouldn't this $100,000 be in the
Okay.
school's budget to raise it?
Legitimate question. It used to be that it was always in the school budget. And somewhere along the line over the last few years, certain things became separate articles apart from the school budget. I can't explain why, but I guess, Mr. Tumalo, maybe you could address that a little bit?
The basic philosophy of the Finance Committee is not to put money in a budget that we can't finance the next year. So in this particular case, we had some free cash. Terry's talked about textbooks now, which are not just a book anymore. And we used the free cash to supplement that part of a special portion of his budget. And again, our philosophy is we're not going to put $200,000 in his budget and not be able to give him that same $100,000 next year. That's why these articles pop up. We have a little extra free cash. He has a special project. You know, I think this is the middle school books, if I'm not mistaken. I may be, but that's how it develops in these specific instances. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Mariah Hunt-Laguerre, 4 Weldon Terrace. So I would like to see if someone could explain to me, during the school committee budget, they asked for $83,000 for this line item. And since we are putting extra, all the warrants add up to about $1.2 million on top of the budget that we already have. Why would we increase this budget from what they asked for, from $83,000 to $100,000?
Okay. Mr. Engano.
Thank you. Terrence Engano, 26 Front Street. I'm the superintendent of schools. First of all, I don't know where that came from, this $83,000. We have never, ever set that up. I went through every slideshow I've given to the FinCom, to the selectmen, to the school committee, to the faculty. It's been $100,000. And I want to explain that because it's an excellent question. It seems like we're back here going to the well every time. Number one, our budget can't support things. I personally believe that people are more important than things, and we need to fund people who help your children, teachers, paraprofessionals, people like that. Textbooks have grown old. I'll give you a very, very quick history. I don't want to keep you going here too long. Back when state testing started, quite a few years ago, before I was in this position, that there were two state tests, English and math. And many, many schools, including Clinton, decided the best way to handle that would be to kind of push aside science and social studies. And in other words, let's concentrate on the two state testings that's going on, English and math. So we basically pushed aside two very important subjects, social studies and science, and put all of our resources and energy into English and math. When I came along, I started to change that. And now the books are extremely old. At one time, we were actually pulling children out of a history class or out of a science class to give them more math or give them more English to help them pass the state tests. So this $100,000 represents brand new science books. This is a renovation, a rejuvenation of the science program in the Clinton Public Schools. $100,000 will buy us brand new science textbooks in grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And the reason for the word technology is we don't really buy textbooks anymore. We buy them, all right, it's physical textbooks, but nowadays there's much more to it than that. In a way, the textbooks are technology because the textbooks are online, there's online exercises, there's online homework. In fact, the entire textbook can be online. And some students can access it, but not every one of our students can. That is the reason why you've been seeing a lot of this textbooks and technology. No such thing as a textbook anymore per se. There's so much more to a book now than there used to be. And back, Mr. Tumalo answered the question perfectly. We certainly don't have the budget to put in and ask you people for, can we put a warrant article to hire a librarian? Because the following year, we want to keep that librarian. And every year, we're going to have to do this. So these kind of one-shot deals are how we get extra money in our budget to pay for these special projects. All right, I'm not going to be asking you for new books in science in grades 4 through 8 again for another 10 years, and it won't be me asking anyway. All right? So that's why we're looking for it. We really need that. A lot has happened in the world of science in the last 10, 15 years. And our current books, I believe, are in the early 90s, 1992, 93. I think we need a change in textbooks, and it's $100,000, and the money we're throwing around tonight, $100,000 is really not that much for the value. Thank you.
Further? Any further questions, comments, or discussion under Article 16? There being none, we'll take a vote at this time. Finance Committee approved. All those in favor of Article 16 indicate now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Article 16 is passed. Article 17.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to borrow the sum of $100,000, said sum to be expended by the Clinton Public Schools for new doors, general repair and maintenance, and cosmetic work at the Clinton Public Schools Administrative Office Building, and for general repairs and maintenance, cosmetic work, and to build permanent walls replacing the original room dividers at the Clinton Middle School.
Second.
Article number 17 have been made and seconded, dealing with $100,000 for the Clinton Public Schools for new doors, general repair and maintenance, and cosmetic work for the Administrative Office Building. Questions, comments, or discussion under Article 17? There being none, this article is also Finance Committee approved. All in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 18.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to borrow the sum of $350,000, said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen for a consolidated software suite for the town.
Second.
Article number 18, dealing with the sum of $350,000 to borrow $350,000 to create a consolidated software system for all town departments within the town. Right now, you know, the town hall and the schools have separate departments for the police, the fire, and they want to coordinate it into all one system so they can all communicate together. Questions, comments, or discussion under Article 18? Sir.
Joseph Andrew Tower, 90 Chase Street. So this says that we're going to be able to borrow or transfer $350,000. How will that affect the town in the fees and the whatnot in the future generations, future years? The fees after the $350,000?
I'm not sure. This article is to borrow. I know it says raise and appropriate or transfer or whatever. In reality, it's a borrowing article, which is a 2/3 vote for passage.
So there'll be fees on each of these maintenance fees, whatnot.
Can you speak into the mic a little better so I can
So there'll be different fees and whatnot on each, there would be additional fees after the $300,000. I'm wondering how that would affect the town of Clinton's taxes after the $300,000. The fees after the $300,000.
I'm not sure what you did. Mike, go ahead.
Sure, no, you are right. There will be annual support fees and upgrades and different charges that will be part of this package, but we're paying those currently right now. So right now, for all the software systems we have, and as the moderator indicated, they're all different between different offices. A lot of them, they don't talk to each other, so we're duplicating a lot of efforts. The school has been involved on this project, and they seem interested as well, too. So I think if we can get us a software package that all the departments can use, we can hopefully eventually save a little bit of money. There will be annual support costs, but we're already paying those several times over right now, and by consolidating, our hope is that we can try to bring those into a little bit less than what we're collectively paying today.
Okay, so just so we know how much we're actually paying, is there an estimate on how much these fees come to as a total at the end after the 350,000?
Yeah, I think once everything is implemented, it would probably be in the neighborhood of about $40,000 a year. That would be
So it would
part
be
of
more
our
close to
general budget.
400,000, just for the people who don't know. It'd be
No.
closer to 400,000 after the taxes and fees.
What's that? I'm sorry.
After the fees and whatnot, it would be closer to 400,000 from the taxes.
Oh, there would be much more. I mean, that would be an annual cost. That support cost would be every year from there on end. But as I mentioned, we're paying that right now. So when you look at any software system that we have annual costs that we're paying every year anyways. So if you bring all those current costs together, it would come up to the amount that we'd be paying for this package as well, too, once we get beyond the capital implementation.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to, just want us to know, like, so that there'd be additional fees other than
Sure.
250.
Yep, sure. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion? Sir?
Kyle Andrzejczyk, 86 East Street. Has the town decided which software suite they'll be purchasing? If so, how many towns is it currently used in? What's the company's track record? That sort of thing.
We haven't made, Mr. Moderator, we haven't made a decision right now. We're still in the evaluation phase. One of the suites that we're looking at closely is Munis, which is about 200 clients that they have in Massachusetts, and it's a nationwide company, and that's all they focus on is municipal enterprise and developing new technology for municipalities. There are some current vendors that we have right now. We're also meeting with them to see if they can bring that type of effort to us to make that a comprehensive package, and we'll make a decision eventually with the Board of Selectmen will make the final decision as to which way we go. So this just gives a borrowing authorization to allow us to move forward. But I think it really gives us finally an opportunity to try to innovate, to try to become more efficient, to bring all of our town departments together instead of the small suites that we're currently using right now. Thank you.
Any further questions under Article 18, sir?
Mike Roberts, 4 Bourne Street. Is this SaaS, or are you actually buying DVDs?
Speak into the microphone, sir.
Are you buying shrink wrap software, or is this SaaS?
It's a unique software just for municipalities.
No, I mean, is it software as a service that you're buying, or are you buying shrink wrap packages that somebody comes in and installs?
Yes, well, it would be a package that's out there right now. They would come in, they would install it, they would train us, but it would be customized to the town of Clinton.
Okay, and does it, and when, in this figure here, is this based on a per seat fee, or is it all-inclusive? In other words, software is sold in any number of ways, and one of the ways is done on a per seat basis. You have a tube, you pay X number of dollars for that. If you get 20 tubes, it's going to be something more, and you'll get a quantity discount.
Right. For a user fee? No.
A user fee?
No, this is
or a
based
seat
on a
fee?
module fee. So there's different modules, if you want the treasurer module, if you want the school module, if you want, so this is based on bringing all the different modules, so it's not a per user charge.
So, by any stretch of the imagination, $350,000 is a sizable sum. How
Right.
did this figure, how was this arrived at?
This was a preliminary quote that we received from Munis.
Okay, now is Munis the only one who's put in a quote on this?
Nope, nope.
Okay.
We're looking at other vendors, that's, as I indicated, we're looking at other vendors, and then eventually, this will be a decision of the Board of Selectmen to finalize.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Ma'am?
Rose Ricker from Fairmont Street. I have a question. When you go and evaluate with the software company, are they going to make sure that all of your hardware will marry in with this program? Because we bought some and it didn't. We had to go out and buy all new hardware.
That's a good point. We definitely will evaluate all of those pieces and costs when it gets to the Board of Selectmen. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
Any further questions? Ma'am? Sir.
Ina Pervins, 4 Bourne Street. I'm wondering who is going to make the decision on the package? Are you going to have a citizens subcommittee, maybe include people who have professional knowledge about software and things like that?
I think currently, we're internally, department heads are reviewing the packages right now to see which one they think would be helpful, and then we'll make a presentation to the Board of Selectmen, and it's up to the Board of Selectmen to determine how to make the final decision. We haven't gotten to that point.
So it's strictly going to be a decision made by users without any input from folks in the industry
No,
that live in town that might know a little bit about stuff?
As I just indicated, currently, we're looking internally to see what would be beneficial, but then it would be brought to the Board of Selectmen, and then
And there will be no subcommittee.
that hasn't been determined yet.
Is there a possibility of that?
I can't speak for the Selectmen, no.
Ma'am? Well, let me just speak to that. We've done quite a bit with subcommittees in the Board of Selectmen, and I think that the Board of Selectmen should continue with that process, and we often ask for volunteers. So I would say that it is entirely possible, given that someone who I assume has some expertise is asking that question, that we perhaps would, the Board of Selectmen, I think, would perhaps consider having a little subcommittee look at it. But I can't promise that because, hey, I might get kicked out next Monday. But I think a prudent thing to do would be to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm
Mayor.
sorry, Mr. Wood, go
Certainly, it is a large investment, so we certainly want, support there, so whatever the Board of Selectmen decides is the best process to follow, I would support that. It's something that we're going to have for a long time. It's going to be a lot of money, and continually, I think it's going to be beneficial to the town, but it has to be the right one, and it has to be the right decision. So any input we get to make that decision, I support.
Is there any further questions, comments, or discussion under Article 13? This is a borrowing article, requires a 2/3 vote for passage. It does bear the approval of the Finance Committee. All those in favor, please signify with your card now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 19.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to borrow the sum of $80,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Public Works for the purchase of a 1-ton dump truck.
Second.
Article number 19, dealing with sum of $80,000 for a dump truck for the Department of Public Works. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Again, requiring a 2/3 vote for passage because it is a borrowing article and it does bear the Finance Committee approval. All those in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 20.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to borrow the sum of $75,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Public Works to remove and replace the underground gasoline tank at the road department garage.
Second.
Article number 20, dealing with a sum of $75,000 to remove a oil tank, underground gasoline tank at the road department garage. I should emphasize that $75,000 is a lot, but it also includes the replacement tank, which makes it more sensible. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There, sir.
Mike Roberts, 4 Bourne Street. Wasn't there a fuel tank removed last year?
Oil.
Oil tank?
Oil. This
Well,
is gas.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, we'll take a vote at this time. This is Finance Committee approved, majority vote. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 21.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to borrow through the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund the sum of $200,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Public Works for a sewer system mapping and infiltration study.
Second.
Article number 21, dealing with a transfer from the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund, the sum of $200,000 for a EPA-required sewer system mapping and infiltration study. Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your card now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 22.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from certified free cash a sum of $50,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Public Works for the cleanup of Worcester Street.
Second.
Article number 22, dealing with a sum of $50,000 to deal with the cleanup of Worcester Street. I can explain that if you like. If you've ever been to Worcester Street, on the end, across the street from it, there's a sharp embankment. And people have been dumping things there for, I remember as a kid they were dumping things there, and it's still there, appliances, tires, whatever. And the residents have asked that the town clean it up, and this is what this article is for. It is Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Ma'am.
Mariah Hunt Laguerre, 4 Walden Terrace. Mr. Moderator, I totally agree with you that needs to be cleaned up. I've been down there many times, although I have a personal problem with the fact that we are spending money out of everyone else's pocket to clean up something that should have been taken care of a long time ago. On top of that, if we're going to spend $50,000, somebody needs to put up a fence or do something to prevent this from happening again. So in this $50,000 cleanup, is there something that prevents this from happening in the future?
Yes, there is a fence going to be installed after they clean it up. Good question, and you're right, it's being done. Any other questions or comments on Article 22? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 23.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from certified free cash the sum of $100,000, said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen for design and development of downtown decorative streetlights.
Second.
Article number 23, dealing with $100,000 for the development of downtown decorative streetlights. Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Okay, the article is passed. Article number 24.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to borrow the sum of $175,000, said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen to retrofit streetlights in the town of Clinton with LED fixtures.
Second.
Article number 24, dealing with the sum of $175,000 to borrow to install LED fixture lights in the street lights throughout the town of Clinton. I should tell you, as this program is, it has a payback of 4.5 years. That includes the principal interest. To do it, after 4.5 years, the town would save money on this installation by having lower electric rates. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Well, given that the last article passed fairly closely, I just want to say this article will result in, we'll be getting credits from National Grid and expect some assistance via a state grant so that a good amount of the money will be recouped. It's basically to take down the present sodium vapor lights, not the poles, the lights, and replace them with LED. Just as National Grid has been sending people around telling you in your homes that you should replace all the sodium vapor with LED because you'll save money. Well, they're not going to do that for the municipalities because there's so many lights. But basically, we anticipate that this will save on the electric bill about $45,000 every year. And so that, as the moderator said, there will be a payback within 3 or 4 years. Thank you.
Any questions, comments, or discussion under the article? It's a borrowing article. Sir?
Ed DeVault, 12 Cyber Court. I just want to say I work at Nipro, and at our Devens plant, we just recently did an initiative to replace all of our lights with LED. LED lights as a cost-saving measure. So I just wanted to, reiterate what you guys are saying. This is a kind of an investment as well as an update. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, or discussion? Okay, this is a borrowing article, requires a 2/3 vote. It has the approval of the Finance Committee. All those in favor of Article 24, please raise your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 25.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, purchase, and/or eminent domain any and all permanent and/or temporary easements for the purpose of repairing, improving, and reconstructing High Street and/or the sidewalks, drainage facilities, and appurtenances related to thereto in connection with High Street reconstruction project, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take all steps necessary, including executing documents and appropriating from available funds money necessary for such acquisitions upon such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deem to be in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Article number 25 having been made and seconded. What this amounts to is, you all probably know that on Water Street, they put in sidewalks when they did the street, and it required people to take some land from some of the homeowners that were on that street to install the sidewalks. They also are going to do something similar to this on parts of High Street, and they want to pass this article so they don't have to deal with each and every homeowner on an individual basis, is my understanding. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Somebody?
She's coming up.
This one? Okay.
Rebecca Gray, 15 Ross Street. My question is, how far down High Street are you going? Is it just High Street proper? Are you going down High Street Extension? Because honestly, High Street Extension has no sidewalks, and High Street does have sidewalks. So that's my question.
Mr. Ward?
Yes. Currently, the scope of the project is to go from Water Street down High Street to Allen Street. So we hope to be able to extend that in the future, but right now the scope is just from High to Allen, and it will be similar to how Water Street came out right now with total reconstruction and sidewalks.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion under Article 25?
One other point, Mr. Moderator.
Yes,
that
sir.
will be through on the transportation improvement project, so it will be state and federal funds that will be paying for that. The town is just paying for the design, and the construction will be paid with grant money. This here just gives the selectmen the authority to take any temporary or permanent easements in order to complete the construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless I hear an objection, I'll take a vote at this time. Requires a 2/3 vote dealing with real estate. All those in favor of Article 25, please signify with your card. Thank you, and opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 26.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute and release a deed and any other documents necessary to release and clear the town's tax taking dated June 9, 1972, and recorded in Book 5238, page 170, as affected by a notice of foreclosure recorded in Book 5638, page 113, and a final judgment recorded in Book 1244-3, page 264. Said property being located on Main Street and shown as Lot 2 in Plan Book 352, Plan Number 50.
Second.
Article number 26 have been made and seconded. What this is, ladies and gentlemen, it's a, we're seeking a release deed for a property on Main Street. Somewhere along the line years ago, for lack of taxes, a lien was put on that property. But the reality is the property owner has been paying taxes for 20 years, and now they would like the lien that has been placed on the property for that taken off, and it requires coming to you for that. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 27.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept the private way known as Pine Street as a public way in the town of Clinton as shown on plan on file in the office of town clerk and available for public inspection during regular town hall business hours.
Second.
Article 27 have been made and seconded dealing with accepting Pine Street as a public way in the town of Clinton. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, all in favor, please signify now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Article 27 is passed. Article 28.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept the following roads as public ways and authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the Massachusetts General Court for a special act to authorize the acceptance of these roads as public ways in the town of Clinton. If required, notwithstanding any general or special act to the contrary, provided, however, that the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes from only to the bill unless the Board of Selectmen approves amendments thereto before enactment by the General Court, which amendments shall be within public purposes of said petition. And
Second.
And the streets are as followed on your warrant.
Second.
Article number 28 have been made and seconded dealing with a long list of streets that you can see here to have them accepted by the town of Clinton. The reality is they've been plowed for a number of years, but this would make it official and make it legal, so to speak, for us to do so. Are there any, streets are Ash Street, Clamshell Road, Lane Ave, McMahon Ave, Oak Court, Ring Street, Spring Street, Doggett Lane, Layton Ave, Benefit Street, Forest Street, Liberty Street, Milton Ave, Richardson Place, Robert Street Extension, Walden Terrace, Fuller Street, Candace Street, Francis Street, Mayflower Drive, Miles Standish Road, Rigby Place, South Meadow Road, West Boylston Street, and Gabby Lane. And parts of other streets that are listed below that, Berlin Street, Eileen Ave, Lorraine Ave, Sterling Street, Willow Street, and Worcester Street. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article?
Regina Brown, 82 Willow Street. I am not against the article, just a question. Will this increase the Chapter 90 that the town gets by recognizing these ways?
Yes.
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
Yeah, and part of the problem here, just so everyone knows why we have to file special legislation, is that these streets, even though they've always been treated as public streets for years and years, for some reason they're not on the Mass DOT list. So in other words, on the Mass DOT list, which would affect that funding, these streets are not on there. So we're really just trying to clean up this old issue. So that's why we're filing special legislation to just have these, first it gets accepted here, then special legislation will be filed to have these, deemed public roads. It's really just a catch-up. For some reason, on that Mass DOT list, they're just not on there. And even the sections down below, like Berlin Street, for example, on that list, there's a tenth of a mile of Berlin Street for some reason. They're saying it was never accepted as a public road. So it's really just to clean up that issue.
Any questions, comments, or discussion under Article 28? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 29.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the Massachusetts General Court for a special act to authorize the town of Clinton to provide for the removal of snow and ice in the making of temporary repairs on the following private ways in the town of Clinton, notwithstanding any general or special act to the contrary. Provided, however, that the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill unless the Board of Selectmen approves amendments thereto before enactment by the General Court, which amendments shall be within the public purposes of said petition.
Second.
Article number, do I hear a second?
Yes.
Article number 29 have been made and seconded. Same issue, different streets, Sprague Road, California Court, Forest Avenue, French Terrace, Hastings Court, Highland Ave, Pierce Place, Pond View Drive, and Shore Lane. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Sir?
Don Woodsmall, 17 James Street. Are these private ways that are currently being plowed by the town?
I believe they are.
Yes.
Not all of them.
Some.
Part of the reason for this, see if I can explain this, Mr. Moderator.
Yep.
As an example, I'll use my own street as an example, Pondview Drive. I bought my house 30 years ago, and in that time, we have always plowed the road. We have never asked the town to plow the road. But because 2 years ago, we were under a state mandate to go to a curbside recycling and trash pickup program, that required the town DPW to go to every residence on every street in town to be in compliance with the DEP order to reduce the number of recyclables we had in our trash. In order for the DPW to safely navigate to every home in this community, they need to be able to access any and all streets, whether they are public and or private. That was the intent of this article, is as long as we have curbside recycling and trash pickup, this was necessary on the part of the town to delineate which streets would be included as part of repairs and or maintenance. But to answer your question, whether the town plows the roads? No.
Oh.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. But speaking of streets that I know of, because I grew up in the California district, the town has been plowing California Court and Hastings Court for a minimum of 50 years. They're paved roads. They've always been plowed. I suspect that many of these other roads are in the same boat, but
Does the DPW, what does this effect have on the DPW in terms of their ability to plow these roads that they previously were not? Is this, do they have the proper equipment on those particular routes? Do they have to add any pieces of equipment? Or in general, I just want to make sure that private roads are always a sticky issue, and I just want people to understand that we are taking on, the town is going to be committing resources to private properties in order to plow and maintain them, and I would assume keep them in a state of repair that they would be passable. That's all.
Mr. Moderator, just to add to that, of these streets, most of them are being plowed by the town right now. There are 3 on that list that are not. So there are only three roads.
Any further questions, comments? Yes. Okay. Be sure and speak into the microphone, ma'am.
Again, Regina Brown, 82 Willow Street.
You need to speak into the mic.
Will this increase Chapter 90 by recognizing these ways?
No, probably not. These are private ways, and even though the town will be plowing and doing some temporary repairs, they'll still remain private ways. They won't become public ways. Like the previous article, those are all what we consider public ways. These roads here are all private ways. They're going to remain private ways. It's just the town is seeking authorization to plow and make temporary repairs as necessary.
Okay, So if the town did any damage on these private ways, is the town liable?
Well, they would be on any street they plow. They've damaged something, they've got to repair it.
I
They're not aware
understand
of
that,
this.
but that's under our tax money, but on a private way, doesn't that change the game? So if that's a private way, should our tax money be paying for paving and plowing a private way?
To answer your question, what do my taxes go for then?
Well, you bought your house on a private way then.
Right.
And you knew it was a private way then. So if I wanted to live in a gated community or a private way, I knew that when I bought the property.
Correct.
And it's on my deed. But if I'm on a public way, that's a whole different game.
Well, so far, the town hasn't been,
I understand the town has been very lenient, but now it's come up as an issue. And if we can't get Chapter 90 money by you allowing us to call it a public way, and you want to keep it a private way, so you want to keep your road private, not public, but you want all the public services, but we cannot get Chapter 90 money for your public, non-public road. Do you see the difference?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Sir?
Bill Duffy, 260 Church Street. I'm also the town's Community and Economic Development Director. Relative to Chapter 90 funding for these roads, really absent, Pondview Drive and Highland Street, most of these streets are not even 75 yards long. Relative to the request made in the article, I'm going to vote in favor of this article because, among other things, one thing that's asked for is the permission to make improvements to these roads if necessary. Many of these roads, particularly French Terrace, Pierce Place, just those two. Right now, those streets drop water onto High Street and destroy the sidewalks on High Street. The ability to, if we ever to make improvements to High Street, to put a drain on those streets would be a benefit to everyone who uses the sidewalks in downtown. So I think that this is rather modest in terms of its request, and I support the article. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. Speaking about the streets I know, and by the way, I was raised on Ledge Court, not any of these two streets. I am quite sure that there are many people on, well, it's a very small, these are small streets. I'm sure that there are many people on these streets that would be very surprised to find that they're living on a private way. The town has been maintaining these streets for 50 years. So.
Are there any further, sir?
Jeff Swan, Franklin Street. I have to ask this question. So you're stating that no one knew that they bought a house on a private way? As a realtor, I would find that hard to be supported by anything in the state of Massachusetts. I mean anything. In addition to that, given the statement by our economic developer, I'm not exactly sure I understand the logic here. You live on a place that is causing a problem to the city, so the city should take on the responsibility of fixing that. If that's true, I have a couple things I'd like to discuss about my place on Franklin Street. That's just not how it works. If you bought a private property and your private property is actually causing a problem to the public, that's your responsibility to repair that. It's not how it works. We don't say to you, oh, if you have a car that's a problem, the state will fix it so that you can drive it on our road. That's actually not how that works. You're responsible to make your car work so you can drive safely on the public road. It is simply impossible for me to understand why we are going to take on a burden to the town, since everybody says we're strapped for cash, of including somebody else's private property into what we are doing in public roads. I'm sorry, I only got up because of what you said. I completely will not vote for this.
Is there any other questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, we'll take a vote at this time. Sir? I think I'm gonna hold that, because I think we're ready to vote on it now anyway. Unless there's an objection, and there is not. All those in favor of Article 29, please indicate by raising your card now, please. All those opposed? Can I have my tellers up front, please? Okay, and put your hands down for the moment. Once again, all in favor of the Article 29, please indicate by raising your hand. Make sure your hand stays in the air until you are counted.
John?
Okay, now all those opposed to the article, please indicate by raising your card now, please. Thank you. Thank you in the balcony. Three in the balcony. It is. Okay, yeah, the yes votes are 120 and the no votes are 86. So the article is passed. Article 30.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the town zoning bylaw.
Mr. Akabuchi, just for a moment.
Sure.
Due to my real estate business, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to step down from this article and ask our solicitor, Mr. Gibbons, to preside over Article 30. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the town's zoning bylaw by adding a new section, 3750, temporary moratorium on marijuana establishments and the sale or distribution of marijuana and marijuana products. And Mr. Moderator, I request that we dispense the rest of the reading of this article.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. This is a moratorium on recreational marijuana. If you recall, last year in November, it was passed at the state level, recreational marijuana, but they have not instituted regulations yet. So this is a moratorium for a year until July of 2018. So that's what this article does. If you folks recall, we already have a bylaw here in the town of Clinton for medical marijuana. This moratorium just deals with recreational marijuana. So are there any comments, questions, Mr. Duffy?
Hello, Phil Duffy, 260 Church Street, also the town's Community and Economic Development Director. On May 31st, the Planning Board, as required by Massachusetts law, held a public hearing to review this proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw. At that meeting, the Planning Board recommended unanimously that the town meeting endorse the article. Mr. Gibbons, additionally. From the floor of town meeting, I'd like to make a motion to amend the article. Mr. Gibbons, I propose that the article be amended in section 3190 to strike certain language so that the first sentence of section 3190 shall read, "This section 3750 shall have no effect on a medical marijuana treatment center as defined in section 6700 of this zoning bylaw or enact in any manner thereto."
All right, so now we're on the amendment. So did everyone hear that? So if you look at section 3190 in the warrant, the amendment is proposing to delete where it states, under 3190, where it states the dispensing of marijuana and marijuana products to registered qualifying patients by. That would be deleted. Is there any comments, questions, or discussions on the amendment? We're talking about the amendment now, not the underlying motion. Oh, I need a second. Excuse me. Okay, so under section 3190, under the proposed amendment, it would read, "This section 3750 shall have no effect on a medical marijuana treatment center as defined in section 6700 of this zoning bylaw or act in any manner thereto." Section 6700 is the zoning bylaw that the town meeting passed last year that pertains to medical marijuana. So this moratorium, as I mentioned, by this amendment, it would not apply to medical marijuana. It's just a clarification. So is there a second on that amendment? I need a second. Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion or comments under the amendment? There being none, all those in favor, please raise your card. All those opposed? Okay, the amendment passes. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the underlying motion. So now we're voting on Article 30 as amended. Are there any comments or questions? Sir, ma'am?
Sarah Carver, 199 Wilson Street. So I see that there's an extension allowed for a year if you don't come to a conclusion by, what is it, July of 18?
Right.
Is that just going to be like a perpetual extension, or are we actually looking to solve this issue? Looking to get like a flavor?
Yeah, this will be for 1 year to give the planning board an opportunity to come up with regulations, so by next town meeting, the planning board would then have a bylaw to bring forward to the people for a vote.
Can we get a sense about if that's realistic or not? Would you mind?
Mr. Duffy?
If I may, the referendum that the voters of Massachusetts approved last November provided for the creation of a medical marijuana control commission that is charged with promulgating regulations at the state level to regulate the manufacture and distribution of recreational marijuana. They have given themselves until, I believe, June 1st of 2018, June 30th of July 1st of 2018, to come up with those regulations. So our bylaw is really key to the state's timeline. Once the state has made their determination as to what the landscape of recreational marijuana is going to be, we're giving ourselves 6 months after that to understand, evaluate the state's regulations, and devise a bylaw that's appropriate to the town of Clinton. Thank you.
So you would say, yes, that's realistic. So by 2019, then, after the state comes through with whatever they want to come through with, that it's realistic that we'll have something in place that will say yes or no on this issue? Yes. Okay. Answer was yes.
And I should say, the Attorney General will only entertain moratoriums or approve moratoriums for a defined period of time. So this isn't open-ended.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sarah Arnold, 36 Larch Street. You had mentioned it passed at the state level, question 4. I just wanted to comment that it actually passed in Clinton as well. It passed by 3,953 votes to 3,061, so I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, there being none, we'll now vote on Article 30 as amended. All those in favor, please raise your cards now. All those opposed? The article passes. All yours, John.
Okay, we're moving now to Article 31.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Chapter 148, Section 26H in order to require that every lodging house or boarding house in the town be protected with an adequate system of automatic sprinklers in accordance with the provisions of the state building code.
Second.
Article number 31 have been made and seconded, dealing with the town accepting a state chapter that would require automatic sprinklers within 5 years in every lodging house or boarding house in the town of Clinton. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Ma'am.
Mariah Hunt Laguerre, 4 Walden Terrace. So how many of these places do we have in town, and how will it affect them? Will they be able to stay in business, or will they go out of business based on this provision?
Will they...
How many boarding houses do we have in Clinton?
Okay, I only know of one. Do we? Or the fire chief, you want to come down?
John McLaughlin, 22 McMahon Ave, presently serving as your fire chief. There are probably less than 5 in the town of Clinton. Generally what happens is we find these places when we go out on medicals, they're illegal to begin with. What boarding houses are basically is you have 6 or more people living in a building. They're sharing a kitchen and bathrooms, so basically they're renting rooms only. They have a horrendous record against fire, and it's a life safety issue. There's no cost to the town.
So, Mr. Moderator, my actual question was, what is it costing these businesses? Will these businesses go out of business based on this requirement? Because it seems to me that the last time we had a sprinkler mandate, we actually forced some businesses out of town because of it.
Yeah, I don't have it. Each business would have to answer that, how it's going to affect them financially. Obviously, it's going to affect them. We just don't know how much. I mean, if there are any of those establishments here, owners, they'd be glad to answer that, but we couldn't. Did somebody, sir, ma'am, I can't, thank you.
Rebecca Gray, 15 Ross Street. I guess I just have confusion because I don't see in this article a definition of what a lodging house or a boarding house is. So I'm concerned that this could be overly broadly applied.
Okay. Did you ask a question, or I'm not, or just making a comment?
Could you, well, the comment is, it's not defined in the article. Could you define it now?
Yeah, I think the chief, go ahead, chief.
Okay, to answer the question again, it's a minimum of 6 people who are not related renting separate rooms. Could be 8, could be 10, minimum of 6. It's pretty much devised by they're sharing kitchen facilities and bathroom facilities. So they're not apartments, they're boarding houses. And again, they're usually lower-income folks. These places have a horrendous record against fire, and these people are entitled to public safety from fire.
Thank you, Robinson, Ridgefield Circle, and I hate to ask the chief up again, but I think we're just trying to get to a definition, so let me ask it another way. For the language of this article, is a bed and breakfast, a vacation rental by owner, and Airbnb a lodging or boarding house?
Chief, let me, the statute actually defines it. This statute, Chapter 148, Section 26H, which is what the town is voting on to put, accept or not accept, it defines what a lodging or boarding house is. Now, quote, "For the purpose of this section, lodging house or boarding house shall mean a house where lodgings are let to 6 or